they're out there has like the number one thing in incentives and issue is, and that's the kind of we have to take passwords hands down.
Yeah, true. 100%.
Good afternoon, everybody. Our final presentation in this room today is by Beau Bullock and Derek Banks. The title of their presentation is Travelocalypse. What he said. Travelocalypse, whatever. It's dangerous business, hacker going out your front door. A little bit about our speakers. Derek Banks has 20 years of experience in the information technology industry as a systems administrator for multiple operating system platforms and monitoring and defending those systems from potential intruders. He has worked in the aerospace, defense, banking, manufacturing, and software development industries. Derek has experience with forensics, incident response, creating custom host and network-based monitoring solutions, as well as penetration testing, vulnerability analysis, and threat modeling. Beau Bullock is a penetration tester red teamer at Black Hills Information Security, where he performs various security assessments for organizations. Beau is a host of Tradecraft Security Weekly, Hacker Dialogues, and the ConSec podcast. He has spoken at industry events including Black Hat Arsenal, DerbyCon, Wild West Hackin' Fest, RVA Sec, BSides events. Did he say BSides? And various SANS conferences. Just a tad about his presentation, and then I'll let you guys have the floor. This is a lot of fun. I don't know if I want them to talk or not.
Feel free. Slide roulette. Just go ahead.
Any questions so far?
You're great.
Okay. How do you survive the treacherous landscape of security conferences, work trips, and other types of travel? Do you suffer from overpacking syndrome? Overwhelmed by the zombie hordes trying make it through security to get to their, boy, this isn't easy as it looks, to their flight on time? It's your Bluetooth on while reading this. Does your phone auto-join at Wi-Fi when it is in range? If so, join us for tips and tricks by seasoned BHIS travelers and survive your next conference trip. We will cover epic backpack hacks, clothing choices, personal and digital security, and even how to enjoy your 5-hour layover at the airport. Have a warm BSides 2019 welcome for Beau Bullock and Derek Banks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. I'm pretty sure my bio said that I was old. Yeah, so how many people, is this your first BSides Tampa? Second? Fourth? This is my fourth, actually. So thanks again for having us. I love this conference. Is anybody here from Virginia? Besides me? Yeah, okay, it was cold when I left, so thanks for having me come down where it's not cold. So a little bit about our talk. You heard the intro there. We get to travel a fair amount for conferences, for work engagements, things of that nature. And so this talk was really born while we were on travel, and we wanted to share some tips that we wish someone would have told us back when we started.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that have happened over the last few years, because I didn't travel for my last job prior to being a pen tester and working for Black Hills, and just moving from not traveling at all into traveling quite a bit. I learned a lot of things fast, and I learned a lot of really important issues that I was doing, and in terms of efficiency and I don't know. We'll do the talk. You'll see tips.
Yeah. So you already heard a little bit about us. I think probably the only thing that wasn't covered is, again, I guess there was one person who was kind of from Virginia. If you're ever in Virginia, look up our meetup in if you're on the coast of Virginia in the Hampton Roads area. We have a city sec style meetup that actually I learned how to do that from Beau.
Yeah. So and we have two here. We have Cigar City Sec here in Tampa and Citrus Sec in Orlando. And so the Cigar City Sec, I'm sorry, I'm not there, Ralph. So every month, I know you want me. I try. I live right in between. I'm in Lakeland, and so I try to make it to either one, but I end up having something come up all the time and barely make it anymore. So I will make sure I'm there this month. I promise.
Those things are usually kids in my life, right? Kids and all their stuff, right? And I guess the one more thing, it wouldn't be a talk with me and Beau if we didn't ask, does anybody still use Office Web App out on the internet? Okay, so I do thank you.
Thank you. Pour one out for Microsoft.
So, this is the next one. Before we start into the meat and potatoes of the talk, I want to talk a little bit about overpacking. And this isn't really me telling you guys you were overpacking. It's even as recently as like 2-3 trips ago, I would overpack all the time. I mean, like, how much stuff do you really need to take on a week-long trip? And for me, like, I found, at least, even when we went to Wild West Hackfest, my wife went with me. We stayed part of the time at a place that had, like, hotel laundry, yet I still had a pair of pants I never wore, right? Like, so did I need them? There are ways to not overpack.
Yeah, obligatory, Marie Kondo meme here, sorry. Does this, 6 pair of socks spark joy in your 2-day trip? So the thing is, like, you don't have to pack your bag full. Like, bring a sizable bag that you can do a single bag for your trip, but you don't need to completely fill it up, right? And honestly, like, don't try to pack the day of your trip.
Oh, yeah. So if you're cramming stuff together at the very end, you're going to throw more stuff than you need in there. Like that hair dryer, they have one at the hotel, right? Or the thing I used to do, I would have like a multi-tool in my checked luggage. Do you know how many times I've used that multi-tool while on travel? 0. Like, I don't need it. Now, there's a bottle opener on my keychain, too. That I use, right? That I use. But the multi-tool, it never came out. So unless you're actually going to go out into the wilderness and need, like, the multi-tool, like, you probably don't need it. And on top of that, like, if anybody drinks wine, they probably have a wine bottle opener at the hotel, and they'll probably let you use it. So that's one of those things, like falling into the what if I need this trap. Like, I am totally guilty of that, and it takes me conscious effort to, like, okay, I really don't need that. And talking about clothes, on a 4-day trip, do you need 4 pair of pants? Yeah, probably not, right?
Yeah, so planning's key, right? Like, planning it out, like, ahead of time, figuring out, okay, so I'm going to be there a couple days, I am going to be doing these activities, these are the types of clothes I'm going to need for those activities. Not just throwing it all in, thinking like, oh my god, I'm going to be here for 2 days, so I better bring 2 pairs of pants, 2 pairs of shirts, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and so one more thing, we'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute, but there's travel clothing, right? So there's always the travel clothing option that they're a little bit more expensive, but geared towards letting you wear it more than one time, right? So now we'll talk a little bit about packs. Like the about slide said, like, I'm a gear aficionado, but what I like about my gear doesn't mean that works for you. We have a little bit of show and tell that we'll show here in a minute, but so traditionally, if you're going to go on a trip, like a week-long trip, you're going to pack a big suitcase full of stuff. You're probably going to pack a rollerboard to take on with you, and then your personal item. That's so you're walking into the airport with 3 things, one of which you're going to let the airlines take from you, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't ever check, but something happened to me recently, and that was going out to Wild West Hackfest, our company's conference. I was going to an airport that I was very familiar with. It was in Norfolk, so I live in that area. And my wife and I, the flight was at like 6 a.m. was the departure time, so we got there at 5 a.m. It should have been plenty of time in the Norfolk airport. We got there, and this isn't actually like actual footage, but this is what the line looked like. I swear, we walked in and our mouths dropped. We were like, we are never, ever going to make this flight. Turns out we made it. Has anybody ever actually gotten on an airplane, like, as they're getting ready to shut the doors 10 minutes before? Yeah, if TSA would have held us up for any reason, we would have not made that flight. So we were lucky. And this actually, again, when we were talking about, talk ideas, like, my experience there of, oh my god, I'm not going to make this flight, was that almost happened. So the other strategy that you have, and I'm sure everybody who's been on an airplane, has anybody been on an airplane in the last, year or so? Probably almost everybody in this room, right? You've been on. Have you ever seen that person who thinks that they didn't need to check, but they still put everything that they thought they needed in their rollerboard? It barely fits, and then they can't get it into the overhead. I get entertained by it, but, you know, and then I've seen people try and get that suitcase out, and, you know, they basically need a can opener or some kind of shoehorn or a wedge to get the thing out. So that's the other strategy, right? You get two things you can take on, your carry-on and your personal item, which the personal item's supposed to fit under your seat. I've seen people trying to shove, like, you know, guitars under the seat before. Yeah, probably not a good idea. You know, you can rent a guitar in almost any city you go to, right? Like, yeah. So, anyway, that's the other strategy, to try and cram it all under the seat. Again, both these things kind of allude to the overpacking, again, with the overpacking stuff, right? And then the other strategy, and I'm partial to this now, is trying to fit everything into one bag. And you might be thinking, holy crap, for a week, could I actually fit everything in one bag? So this actually wasn't a week-long trip. We recently got to go to ShmooCon, and I was there for 4 days, and this is what I took for 4 days. And it was everything I needed. In fact, there was still one shirt I didn't wear in this. I had one bag, and it was a GoRuck GR2. I really like the GoRuck stuff. Yeah, they're expensive, but man, they're bomb-proof, and also warranted for life, right? And so that's another thing as we talk about gear. Like, you know, GoRuck might not be something that you're into, but I like them because, you know, they're warranted for life, and they're not going to, you know, get destroyed.
Yeah, no, so like one thing I would show here is like I tried to do the similar picture to this one for a trip. I went to Peru for like 4 days, and I tried to do this, but my picture ends up looking way worse because like I packed way more shit than I needed. It was terrible. Like I was thinking, like, because I'm out of country, I'm gonna need all these other things that I don't probably need. Like I'm gonna take like a couple different like language books to like translate. Like, why? And I ended up like using like Google Translate the whole time.
There's an app for that.
I know, yeah, exactly. Like there's so many little things that I just overpacked and just didn't need. And anyways, yeah.
Yeah, and so again, one bag strategy, like the drawback to it was, I mean, pretty much the bag was full. So did I overpack? Maybe a little bit, but you know, there's swag at the conference and stuff like that. That was kind of hard. I was lucky. I was taking a train, so it really didn't matter what I took. I don't know if anybody has ever taken a train. By the way, that's how civilized people travel. The train is way better than an airline. And they say you can take 2 bags. Yeah, you can take whatever you want. They don't care. But anyway, so I had to carry my conference bag after that. But, so, you know, one bag travel does have some limitations. Like coming down here, I actually brought 2 bags. I brought a duffel bag because, I wanted to work out while I was here. We went and worked out yesterday. And, so I'm not a small guy, and I wear size 14 shoes. Yeah, size 14 shoes don't fit in a one bag strategy. That does not work. So how do we fit all this crap into one bag, right? Well, even if you're not one bagging and you're taking 2 bags, I highly recommend packing cubes. If you haven't used packing cubes in the past, this is where it's at. And the reason why is because organization is key, right? The organization of, you know where things are. When you get to the hotel, you can take the one, like, you know, thing out that you need that has, you know, like, you know, what like your clothes or whatever, put it right into the drawer if that's what you want to do. Everything's organized and neat.
Yeah, my favorite thing is, like compression bags. So like taking like a bag that like you can actually squish down, like an airlock it, because then you can like squeeze more shirts and stuff in it and then like airlock it down and it's like way tighter. It's awesome.
Yeah, and so I do the same thing with my electronics. Like, so I have like one, you know, thing that all my like power adapters, everything goes into one thing, so I know it's not scattered about my bags. There aren't cables flying out everywhere. I guess a little bit anal about it that way, but I like to make sure that everything's modular and I can just get it out if I need it. So I kind of talked about travel clothing in the past. I'm wearing a black t-shirt and jeans, so I was thinking maybe, you know, alternatives to black t-shirt and jeans, but I did bring black t-shirt and jeans. But, you know, cotton is really, in my opinion, geared to be worn one time and then washed, right? Because it's going to hold odor. If you get it wet, it holds moisture. It takes forever to dry. I mean, it's comfy, don't get me wrong. It's also cheap, right? So I don't personally own any like merino wool things, but there are companies that sell merino wool like shirts and pants. They are expensive. Theoretically, they are odor and moisture resistant, and as Jack Daniel points out, travel underwear. that actually is probably a good idea because you don't have to take a pair of underwear for every single day. You can just, wash them in the sink. Of course, that's kind of gross. Now that you think about it, like next time you're using that hotel to brush your teeth, like think about somebody was washing underwear. That's right. So there's a compromise, right? Synthetic material is probably a good compromise. It's not as expensive, and there are synthetic things that you can get that don't look like you're going hiking. Like I can't go on a customer engagement and wear cargo pants. I can't bring myself to do it, right? I mean, I look like, hey, look, I'm going hiking. Want to know about security? Like, I mean, there are options that look a little bit more professional. So I like a synthetic blend kind of stuff. And then lastly, about the things you're going to carry around. This might seem obvious to some people, but it took me 2 years before I realized that this was a good idea. A travel surge protector. Instead of carrying 8 dongles with you, like just take a couple of cables and 1 travel surge protector, because if you're in a situation where you're at the airport and everybody's waiting at the gate and you want to charge your phone but all the outlets are taken, hey, can we switch and you can plug into this and I can power too? And it's just like $13, right? And the other thing is too, when you get to your hotel room and there's this weird looking loose USB thing hanging out on the lamp that you can't move off the table, you really want to plug your phone into that? Yeah, or like the NSA charging station, which there was only really a battery behind that, but still, yeah, right? It's just a battery. So I don't trust USB devices. So I like to make sure that I at least own the thing I'm plugging in. And lastly, for power, you guys probably know this, a battery pack. Battery packs come in way handy, especially like if your device is running out of power on the plane.
Yeah, so part of this talk too is we wanted to talk not only just like, completely non-security stuff. Like I wanted to talk about how do you not get hacked when you're traveling too. Like there's a huge, possibility, right, or potential for letting your guard down whenever you're traveling and you're maybe like on a vacation or a business trip, or even at a security conference. So this section is kind of like, let's get paranoid a little bit. While we're traveling, and then how paranoid do you get on a vacation versus like going to DEF CON, right? Like you might have different levels of paranoia. How paranoid are you in your own house? Like you might have to really like think about like, should I be thinking that I'm being attacked constantly, even when you're like on the beach somewhere, right, on vacation? Is that necessary? Maybe not, but at the same time, if you're being targeted by nation state actors, that might be a potential threat for you. And the other thing is it's not just like a lot of people think like, oh, I'm not a target, I'm not going to be somebody would hunt me down, and try to like attack me specifically. Well, hackers are opportunists. Hackers love to take advantage of any situation they can, right? So like a hacker at this conference, let's say they're bored, maybe they're not in a talk, and they just start poking around with Wi-Fi, or maybe they have a Wi-Fi pineapple. I guarantee you there's probably somebody here with a Wi-Fi pineapple running one right now today. And we'll talk about that too, but like the thing is a bored hacker has the ability to take advantage of you, so just keep your guard up. So the obvious stuff, right? Like the things that you people definitely heard, disable Bluetooth Wi-Fi. Maybe don't even turn your phone on when you go to like a security conference, right? Like that's standard stuff, but a lot of people don't really understand why shouldn't I do that? A lot of people like hear that, like they say, like if you're going to DEF CON, like don't bring your phone, or don't, like why though, right? Like what's the point? Well, there's things like Blueborn, which was one of the exploits last. Oh my God. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so Derek is going to show you from a distance.
Can see this, right?
So we pulled up basically it's just an app on an iPhone. It's a Bluetooth scanner just to show how much Bluetooth is on here.
I'm gonna guess it's picking up at least 50 devices.
Like just kind of scroll through it.
Bluetooth too. Yeah. So basically,
like it just scrolls. Like so much Bluetooth going on right now. And there was just an exploit, like there was just a vulnerability for Android devices last year that you could get remote control of a phone. Like you could literally get a shell on a phone in a room with you over Bluetooth and do like recorded touch patterns. So like you could make it like open up the camera and turn the camera around and take a picture, and then like you could download it over command line. So like super privacy concern there, right? So yeah, disable your Bluetooth when you go to like a conference, because that is a kind of a rare vulnerability. Like it's not all the time that happens, but there's definitely going to be more like that. Mapping secure facilities. So this was a big problem, and so Derek actually did a talk about the Strava data, which I'll let him kind of mention real quick.
So I'm going to caveat this with, I am a paid Strava user. I'm not saying anything bad about Strava. I'm just saying that the people who use it should kind of know what's going on with it. So I'm sure, has anybody heard of the Strava heat map? Yeah, so basically last year, about a year ago, Strava came out with a heat map where you couldn't really identify individuals, but it showed like Strava, at least through their interface, you couldn't identify individuals, but you could see where Strava was being used. And so you'd look at like Afghanistan, and there'd be like a square around a little area in Afghanistan where like somebody was using Strava. I'm gonna go with, it's probably a military base, right? And so it turns out that even after GDPR, Strava kind of lets you just scrape their data. So I won't really go into the talk that we did, but the gist of it was that, so we set up a DigitalOcean droplet and wrote some Python to basically go scrape Strava's data. And that DigitalOcean instance had 50 gig of space. We filled it up within like a month, and we were kind of throttling it a little bit. So I added 100 gig DigitalOcean partition to it. We filled it up, right? And so I started looking through the data set we had, and I probably used Strava 3-4 times a week, running. And we never even got to my data, my wife's data. So how much data does Strava have? A lot. And you can identify people. You can see where they live, right? And there's caveats to it, and I think fitness companies are aware of this and making changes. But just know that with that GPS on, it really could give away a lot more than you intend.
Yeah, and then like I mentioned before, like the Wi-Fi pineapple. So for those of you that aren't aware or haven't understood what like that actually is, the Wi-Fi pineapple is a device. It's a commercial device that you can buy from a company called Hack5 that basically allows you to set up an access point that listens for any other devices trying to connect to SSIDs they previously connected to. And if they've ever connected like an open SSID before, those constantly beacon out. Like, how like you'll go home and your phone will automatically connect to your Wi-Fi because you're near it. That's because your phone's constantly beaconing out for your home network. And same thing with like Starbucks Wi-Fi. Any Wi-Fi you've ever connected to before, it tries to find that. And so that way when you get in range of it, it connects. So the Wi-Fi pineapple basically takes that and exploits it by saying, okay, you want to connect to Starbucks Wi-Fi. I'm Starbucks Wi-Fi. Connect to me. And so now your phone connects to my network, or your laptop even, and I can now control things like DNS, or I can serve up various malicious payloads just by you navigating to a website. So for example, like if you were trying to go to Gmail or something, I can redirect you to a malicious Gmail that I host and have valid certs on it that looks, it's not going to say gmail.com, but you might not notice that. You might type in gmail.com. I redirect you to, Gmail with like 2 L's or something, right? And I went ahead and set up like a server with the valid certs. You now think you're logging into gmail.com. You're really logging into my server. I now have your creds. So like trying to being able to identify that stuff is tough, So another reason to disable Wi-Fi. RFID blocking. So this isn't one of those things that like, I don't think a lot of people really, I think there's two different kinds of people. There's one that are really paranoid and they're like, oh my god, I gotta get an RFID blocking wallet. And they really have no idea what the attacks are. They just do it because it seems like it's the thing to do because like they sell them everywhere now. And then there's the other side of people that really don't understand that there are RFID attacks and they're like, I'm not paying extra for an RFID blocking wallet. Like, what's the point? Well, the fact of the matter is like, not all your cards have them, but a lot of credit cards have RFID chips now. And just getting in range of them, you can get credit card data. Like, it's that easy to get within range of a credit card and skim it.
Or the same thing with your passport. Your passport's got RFID in it. So, yeah, that's not scary at all. And then, what about your work badge? Anybody here have to travel with their work badge because they have to plug it into, I can sit about 2 feet away from you and clone that thing, right? And then get into whatever facility you're in. That's not scary either, right? So, I think that, RFID, you should be aware that, those radio signals aren't really contained right just to you.
Yeah, and then when you're out shopping, obviously, right? Like, even if you have like an RFID blocking wallet, you go shopping and you're, you have to worry about physical skimmers, right? So like on ATMs, on gas pumps. So, you go up and you jiggle it or something. Try to make sure that it's not like a 3D printed version of that, reader, right? But then you also have to worry about people that are near you because like he was saying, all I have to be is within like a couple feet of you and I can skim that RFID chip.
So the next time you're at an airport and somebody sits one seat away from you and sits their backpack right in between you and then doesn't really pay attention, just think about that. Like, what's in that backpack? Sorry, and now I'm going to make you paranoid.
Oh yeah. So speaking of sitting on a plane, it's crazy. Like how many times I've been on a plane and somebody just pulls out their laptop next to me and starts working right next to me, and I'm like, do you really understand who you're sitting next to? I mean,
I've actually seen somebody that was a customer of ours. They worked for a customer that we did an engagement for, like one seat up in front of me, like doing work for that customer. Like, oh god. I don't know.
And like I say in the slide, like airplanes are notorious for this because people are busy. Like people get on a flight and then they think they have to work. Like, and it's such a bad practice because like I can try to record you like typing in your password. So like for anything remote now, like if I try to log into your cloud accounts, I might be able to do that. But then like just continuing business as normal. So like them writing emails, doing work, like that stuff's sensitive, Yeah.
I mean, privacy filters, privacy screens are a good thing, but I mean, I can't help myself. If you're next to me, like working on your laptop, I'm gonna look. I cannot help myself. Is anybody else like that? Like, I can't. Oh, God, what are you doing?
A little on time. Okay, so don't get too comfy. I've been to a lot of SANS conferences, right? Or any conference, like training conferences where like I'll be in a room with a bunch of people working and like they do the training and then it's like, it's time to go to like the break or lunch break or something. And they just leave their laptops in the room, like wide open, unlocked. Like, do you think you're in like a comfort zone or something? Like, why? Like, that's a terrible idea. Lock your computer. It's the Windows key and L. That's all you gotta do. And so I actually had a problem with this in my own house. So, you can't even get comfortable in your own house, apparently, because I work with a bunch of freaking hackers. And, like, so last year, my coworker, Mike Felch, who, after BSides Tampa, like, we were hanging out at my house, like, in my home. And we were just talking, I don't even know, like, so I guess I left my, my Surface, tablet kind of like unlocked. And Mike freaking writes hacks to, like, all my Twitter followers. And then immediately replies with like, dang bro, what happened? Like, come on.
Oh man.
So, Windows key L. And then the other thing when you're on a trip, obviously physical security is still a big problem too. So, do you encrypt your phone, right? Like, do you encrypt your laptop? Like, if somebody literally steals your device, is that going to be secured? Do you really need to bring your work laptop with you? For the most part, most conferences that I go to these days, I don't even bring a work laptop. I bring a completely separate system that I don't even do anything personal on or work related. I literally just do conference talks on it. Because like in the event that somebody like decided to steal a backpack, I'm not even going to worry about it because it's like just slides. Good. I mean, have fun.
Man, you can do this all, right?
I know. Yeah. yeah. You go to the talk now. Yeah. I mean, obviously, like. Going to other countries, like bag slashing is a big problem too. But I don't think that's a big problem here in the U.S. so much, but. Hotel room security. This was a really, really big hot topic, at DEF CON this year. So basically the whole idea about, or the whole reason this was a hot topic was because, so Katie, Masuris, she was tweeting that basically two members who allegedly said they were from the hotel security were banging on her door to let them in to do like an inspection. And this is all due to the shootings that had happened previously in Vegas. And I think that what had happened was she had put her do not disturb sign on, so she didn't get service, and that triggered a set of events that like now she's suspicious. And so like now hotel security is coming to beat on the door. But the problem with that is you can't just let random people into your room without verifying who they are or authenticating them somehow. You know, especially like, you know, like smaller people that are more apt to be like knocked over or pushed down, like if somebody lets you in. So like the big problem with this was that she tried to verify them with a hotel desk. Like she called the desk and they could not verify them. And she's like, I'm not letting these people that say that they're, you know, I'm at DEF CON. Like there's like 30,000 people that, you know, half of them are probably black hat hackers, you know, like, so anyways, like, so some things you can do to prevent somebody from busting your door down, is tie a belt around the door, closer itself. So the little swinging door thing, you know, like that pulls the door back in. Tie a belt around that. Yeah, good luck getting in. And then they make this thing called the Traveler's Doorstop too, which basically is like, you know, the typical doorstop holder, except it's got a little, like you can see like the little, like twisty thing that pushes like almost like a nail kind of thing into the carpet. Like, sorry hotel carpet, but, I'm not letting anyone in my room.
Yeah, and so, you know, as far as getting into a hotel room, I mean, there's videos online. Anybody's done any physical penetration testing, like under the door tools, things like that. It's not impossible to get in, even with the slide lock. That can be defeated. So some of these ideas are to help, you know, with that kind of stuff. And speaking of hotel rooms, has anyone ever heard of an evil maid attack? Yeah, right. So, you know, think about that the next time you leave your laptop in your hotel room, especially if you're in a different country and go out to dinner. You know, can somebody get into that room that has a key? Yeah. I mean, it could be even hotel staff. And then what can they do? I mean, even if your laptop's encrypted, there are ways of, you know, if the drive's encrypted, there are ways of getting around that, right? And so the idea behind an evil maid attack is you go out to dinner, you leave your electronics there, you know, someone comes in, they do this thing, like, you know, maybe put a keystroke logger on your computer, you leave it again, they come back and they get credentials from the keystroke logger. So essentially your electronics are, you know, not monitored by you. So does anybody have like a spare Android phone at their house, some old phone? I know you all do. I mean, come on, I have like 12 of them, right? So there's this app called Haven. Now it's a beta, right? But you know, you can install it from the App Store, and it actually works. So you know, I tested it out on a spare Android phone, and you know, it uses the phone's sensors, light sensors, you know, the camera, to see if anybody comes into your room. So yeah, this was actually the other night. I put it on a phone, I fired it up, I went downstairs and got a snack because I was hungry. Came back up, did some, you know, moving around in my office, went out, came back in. Sure enough, it logged that, you know, my activity in the room. So, you know, then there's also, you know, like custom solutions. If you're really paranoid, you could, you know, set up some, you know, Raspberry Pis, your own hidden cameras in there. And we're actually going to talk about some hidden cameras here in a minute.
Yep. So the other thing, you know, securing your phone, obviously, we already talked about encrypting a disk. The remote wipe feature is obviously like almost a must-have, I think. Like if you lose your phone, you want to be able to take the data off and make sure that nobody can get to whatever data is on your phone. I mean, depending on obviously like what content too. Like if it's just your personal device, you might be worried about pictures, right? Or you might be worried about like if you use it for work, maybe emails were downloaded, but hopefully your company has some sort of MDM solution to delete those for you. We at Black Hills, we have a tool called ReconNG, which is an open source tool that we do a lot of open source reconnaissance with. And one of the modules within that is called Twitter's push pin module. And it's not even just for Twitter. It's for like, I think YouTube, Flickr, and a couple other sites too. But the idea behind it is you give it a GPS location and it will find any of the tweets from the local area around that location. And why is this important? So let's say we take the address of a building that we know is the organization's building, right? And we now find the tweets or anybody around that building that has been tweeting with their GPS on. We can now identify employees of that organization as well as their personal Twitter accounts, right? And you know, we were talking about earlier, we've been pivoting more and more to phishing outside of the realm of an actual organization's email infrastructure. So traditionally, everyone puts so much effort into protecting, you know, your users from being phished from an email perspective. But are you actually looking at things like LinkedIn, or if I send you a direct message over Twitter, is anyone watching that? Probably not. So we've been trying to kind of pivot our phishing and social engineering through those. Like, for example, like a good LinkedIn ruse would be like, I'll pretend to be a recruiter at your company and maybe send another recruiter like a potential job application, say, hey, how does this look? And then they go to log in, and really it's my credential harvesting portal. And then RIP FaceTime, right? So and I put that in there because
it's too soon.
Yeah. So for those of you that didn't hear, so FaceTime, Apple recently had a really, really bad problem with FaceTime. Basically what you could do is you could start up a FaceTime call with somebody and add yourself to that group FaceTime, and it essentially turned the other side into a listening device. Like, they didn't even have to answer. So like you could basically listen in on somebody else that had FaceTime without them even knowing, which is a really, really bad problem.
That's not just me, right?
Oh.
Oh.
Whoa.
All right. That's not us, I promise. That's the Bluetooth controlled lights.
10.
So the next thing that might seem obvious to some people in the room, or maybe not, how many people use hotel Wi-Fi? I can't stand using public Wi-Fi, and I have to use a VPN. It's like a visceral reaction, right? And the reason why is because I'm aware of attacks that occur, right? So you can use a VPN service. I do use one. Probably would be better to roll your own, use OpenVPN, or there's a GitHub project called Streisand, which basically just get a cheap VPS and set your own. It's made towards dissidents in countries that, are oppressive, but no reason you can't use it, right? And then, when you're on travel, like, how many people pay attention to SSL warnings? Yeah, like I don't go for that stuff. And then how about app updates? Do you ever freak out when you're on travel and something wants to update? Like, has anyone ever heard of a attack called ISR Evil Grade? Yeah, right. So basically, ISR Evil Grade, if you're, upstream in the network and you see, a request to get an update for some kind of app like Java or something like that, you answer, yeah, that's me. Here, have the update. Yeah, and then, your device will get compromised. So pay attention to what networks you join. I do realize that you don't always have a choice of using your phone's hotspot. You have to use the hotel Wi-Fi. Just make sure you're using something to secure those communications.
Yeah, so for some people, you have to get like James Bond level paranoid. And I joke about that, but in all seriousness, like, there was a real issue. Like, so Airbnb, like, they've had multiple cases where they've found like cameras in the rooms, right? And like, Airbnb obviously they have a policy, like, you have to tell the guests that you're filming them, like, that's
What?
That's
really?
Yeah. So, you can sweep for bugs. You can sweep for cameras and microphones. Obviously, like, it gets expensive if you want to actually look from an RF perspective. But manually, a good way to do it is, like, you can turn all the lights off, look for like cameras, obviously. You can turn, all the electricity off in the room and then go hunting with like, some sort of, like the RF detectors, right? Like, if everything's off in the room that you know of, like the refrigerator's off, everything else is off, then you should be able to pick something up in the room. But anyways, there's an article if you want to go sweep for bugs.
Yeah, or you could just not stay at Airbnbs.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, so, we're in an InfoSec conference right now. You're likely an InfoSec Pro, which, to me, that makes you a valuable target. Like, we started, honestly, like, from Black Hills. I mean, I don't know about how a lot of the other pen testing companies are going, but we've started just trying to spearfish, like, either developers or people that are already in InfoSec. Because if we just can convince them, then we're already, like, admin everywhere, like,
This has worked, by the way. It's a good feeling when you spearfish a DA out of the gate.
Yeah.
Yes,
so,
this has happened.
So, like, part of that comes from doing a lot of really heavy recon and figuring out where people are. And so, like, we heavily monitor Twitter. We watch all social media for, like, where you're at. So if you're saying you're at this conference, I might send you something related to BSides. Hacker's gonna hack. Oh, sorry.
So this is actually kind of how this talk was born. Does anybody use an airport lounge? Like, so this was something after all this time that I've been traveling, during this, leaving Wild West Hackfest, I realized when Beau and I and my wife were in Dallas Fort Worth that we had access. I had access through my credit card to the American Express Centurion Lounge. And we went and found it, and it was kind of weird going in an unlabeled elevator that had no, like, we thought like something was wrong, but when we walked into the American Express Lounge, it was like angels opened up and so I got to bring the 2 guests in. There was free alcohol, there was free food, there were couches, there was, the football game was on, there was privacy. You could go in private rooms, there were private showers, there was a spa. My wife actually said, hey, can we take a later flight? Because this is badass, right? So, and that's just because and we'll talk about credit cards here in a second. I know we're going to run short on time, but so the gist of it was I never believed in airport lounges until I went to one. So if you can use miles or you travel 25, 50% of the time, I would highly recommend an airport lounge. And yes, this is me and Beau sitting in the lounge. So travel cards, if you're able to with your company, if they don't force you to use their card, get a card that gives you travel points. There could probably be an entire presentation on a hack points because it gets kind of in depth. And we're going to post these slides, by the way, so you don't have to, worry about the links, but there are some places to get started to figure out how to make the most out of your points. And, points, I don't know how much stuff I've bought of points. My Amazon or my American Express lets me shop at Amazon with my points. Holy crap. And the same thing with airlines. I would recommend, and I'm kind of going fast now, but airline miles and hotel points. I would try and be loyal to brands because I've took my family on entire vacations just based off of airline miles and points. Yay, Hilton. Here.
Yep. So this was before I decided this was a terrible idea. I slept in a hotel or in an airport one time, and it was a really, really bad idea. When you book flights, look at the connecting flight time. If it's like 30 minutes, it's a bad idea. You're probably going to miss that flight. So I always shoot for an hour and a half, 2 hours at this point now, in between, especially at the bigger, airports like Atlanta, Dallas Fort Worth,
or when they have to de-ice the plane on all your legs. Just saying.
This particular situation really sucked because it was already a late flight. And so I had to, they rescheduled me for the next day and they were going to put me in a hotel, but the flight was at 5 a.m. So why would I leave? I could have gone and slept in a hotel for a couple hours, I guess, and came back, but have to go back through security. That would kind of suck, but carry stuff with you that you can just, sleep in a.
Yeah, and so we'll kind of skip over this real quick, but if you end up traveling with a family like I do, it just multiplies your power and your requirements that you need to take. And I found it's also good to pre-plan activities. And then now we're to the point where we're going to give you some of the tips that our coworkers gave us. So first of all, exercise. I don't know how many people regularly exercise. I try to now because I'm old, and if I don't, I'll probably die. Use the hotel facilities to exercise. We're not talking about the bar and 12-ounce curls, as good as that is. But try and blow off steam in a healthy way. And that's really advice for me. I have to tell myself over and over again. And then, you could also join a gym that is, nationwide. And then, just try and stick to a routine as much as possible. I actually have a goal to run in every city that I go to. At least one time outside is no matter what the weather is, unless it's, stupid cold outside. And then, that at least gets me out doing something once.
Yeah, and then you don't actually need a gym for a lot of the stuff. You can do. There's a lot of no equipment required kind of exercise you can just do in the hotel room. Not every hotel you're going to go stay at is going to have a gym with decent stuff. So I don't know. Look up how to do no equipment workouts, or if you just bring a band. You can do a ton of stuff with a single exercise band.
Yeah, and any exercise is better than no exercise. So we've kind of touched on organization. So, try and make things modular. Try and have kits. If you're a presenter, have a presenter's kit. If you're a pen tester and you go on wireless and physical engagements, have things put together in a modular way. So here's my wireless and physical kit that I use. So the old conference bag for the under the door tool, a monitor for, my drop boxes, the cases for all the other odds and ends. And then if I really wanted to, I can take all the stuff out and I can use that as a carry-on for a trip, right? Trusted traveler programs. You guys have probably all heard of TSA PreCheck or global entry. I highly recommend, if you're ever going to fly through an airport that's not your like regional or local airport, if you're going to go through a major airport, the first time that you realize that you just got to skip an hour of line because of TSA PreCheck, yeah, it's worth the $80. And some cards actually reimburse you, like travel cards will reimburse you for the fee. And then one last word. So this is me leaving Wild West Hackfest last year. Yeah, I got the full TSA treatment, and I'm nothing against the TSA. This was my fault, and I'll tell you why. It turns out that they really don't like plastic boxes with wires coming out of them. Yeah, so they were real curious about this. Does anybody know what these are? Yeah, they're card readers, right? High frequency and low frequency card readers, because that's what we were doing at the conference. And I brought them to like make a thing, and then I didn't make the thing, and I brought them back on my carry-on, and that turned out that was a bad idea. So just be careful what you pack. If you're not checking it, the TSA gets curious, especially at smaller airports. Like I've taken things through big airports. Like you don't want to look at that? Okay, fine. But yeah, smaller airports, they don't get to see the same breadth of stuff. So, and one more last thing, and then I think we're done. For entertainment, try and entertain yourself, on the plane, right? So, pick a good pair of headphones. And I don't think I said this during the talk about like luggage, but, try and invest in the best quality that you can get, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm too poor to buy cheap. If I buy one thing, I want it to last for a long time. Like I have a pair of Audio-Technica headphones, like over-the-air headphones. They weren't terribly expensive, but they weren't cheap, but I love them for travel because I don't have to listen to anybody, right? Aside what I put on there. And then also some app recommendations, for reading for free, library app called Libby, and then Pocket app for putting podcasts or, Twitter and other articles offline on your phone. Anyway. And we're out of time, but I think if anybody wants to ask any questions, we're right outside in that booth. So, there's a rule of 3, right? So you get 3 hours of sleep, 2 hot meals and 1 shower? Yep. Is that that's the rule of 3? Or is it? So that's the minimum. That's the minimum, right? So I guess probably, I won't call it a burner phone, but I'd probably take a YOLO phone, right? Where I'd probably take a phone that I could just throw away afterwards, because look, I do take my normal phone to most conferences. I'm not sure that's one that I would take. So, no work laptop. I definitely wouldn't take that. No kind of like cards that could be cloned, but that and find good parties. You have anything?
Actually, surprisingly, the wireless at DEF CON is actually really safe to use, which I know that sounds crazy, but like if you use the official DEF CON wireless, they actually do 802.1x like authentication, like certificate based. And it's actually one of the more secure things you could do at DEF CON is use